Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. It's JMA Friday, so we're going to have a look at the coming month with the Japanese and CFS V2 models. It's going to take us into the start of June, so we'll be leaving spring behind and just heading into the beginning of summer with this update. That's meteorological summer, of course, which runs from the 1st of June to the 31st of August. In terms of the weather, it's never as easily defined as that, as last week proved when we was thrown back into winter, even though it was at the end of April. So you never quite know what the weather's going to do, but when it comes to divvying up the statistics at the end of the month and the season, it's always easier if you've got a defined period, and summer is defined statistically as the 1st of June to the 31st of August. So we're going to start the summer with this update. We'll see what the JMA and CFS V2 models are predicting in a moment. But before I get on with that, just very quickly to say about the ads. There's links to articles on all of the pages. Have a browse through those widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. Thanks very much for doing that. There's video ads on most of the pages, and they open up the content, and when you watch them, they'll close back up again. And this helps to pay for GazWebBiz.com. It keeps it completely free of charge, so you don't have to worry about subscriptions or pay-per-view, anything like that. And thanks so much for doing that. So we're going to start off with the JMA 500 millibar height anomalies for the Northern Hemisphere, looking down from the pole. So this is the top of the North Pole, just here. This is the centre of the North Pole, just there. The British Isles is down here in the mid-latitudes. These are broke down into weekly periods, of course. So the first weekly period will take us from the 6th through to the 13th of May. So essentially the week that we're in. As you know, 500 millibar heights, blue extrapolates to low pressure, and yellow, orange, red extrapolates to high pressure. So we've got a ridge here above average height sitting to the east and the northeast of the country, with a trough out to the west and the southwest. The flow is going something rather like that. And it's quite a complicated one, but it means we're bringing a fair amount of warm air from the south and southeast during the course of the coming week. The trough down to the southwest will be throwing up showers or longer spells of rain potentially. Risk of some thunder in with that as well, and that's particularly into the start of next week, I think, when we will see an increasing risk of thunder and some quite heavy downpours, especially across the south. But with the orientation of the ridge and the trough, it means that the air is going to be pretty warm coming from a southerly or southeasterly direction. Now, week 2 looks like this. This is the 13th through to the 20th of May. And a little bit different. The trough is moving further out into the Atlantic. We've got some ridging pushing down from the north, extending down into west of Europe. We've also got this trough across Scandinavia. It's a bit complicated, but essentially there's a fair amount of dry weather, but the risk here is that the flow could be turning into the north potentially around the middle part of the month. As I say, but above average heights are through the country, so I don't think there'll be a tremendous amount of rain, but I think this is probably quite a bit colder than week 1, and it just depends how close this trough gets to us. It's setting up over Scandinavia. If that's any further towards us, then we could really start to open the door to some unusually cold air again from the north. It's a low risk at the moment, rated only around 10-15%, but mid-May, of course, there's so much going on in the fields and in the gardens that it will need watching very closely, see if those winds do go into the north. The GFS this morning is hinting at that just a little bit on the GFS run. So again, it'll be a case of watch this space, I think, for the middle part of May. Now go through to week 3 and week 4, going from the 20th of May through to the 3rd of June, so we just start the new month, and everything goes a little bit more back to the west again. So above average height setting up to the south. Trough of low pressure is very across Scandinavia, but this time it's backing off towards Iceland as well, and to the south of Greenland. So essentially we're just bringing in a westerly flow here. This is Atlantic based, and probably still some bands of rain to the far north and west, but the south and east could get a reasonable amount of fairly dry weather. So that's the Northern Hemisphere view, looking down from the pole. Let's have a look at the mid-latitudes and tropics and see how the temperature and precipitation on anomalies stack up this. Sorry, I've got a bird going crazy outside, and I seem to be sort of fighting with it to see which one of us you're going to hear. So we're going to have a look at the week 1 temperature and precipitation anomalies first of all. So this is how it's looking. We've got the ridge up to the northeast. You can't really see Scandinavia on these charts, but it's up there somewhere. British Isles is, of course, in the top right-hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it. And then there's a trough out in the Atlantic. So it means that the flow goes something like that. It is warm. Winds are from the south-southeast, but this trough could be throwing up bouts of thundery rain, especially to the south. But temperature anomaly, so nice and warm. Look at that. The coming week shows yellow and orange colours right over the country. So really warm week coming up. The precipitation anomaly for the coming week, that comes out generally a little bit wetter than average for the south, a little bit drier than average up in the north. So it does imply the wettest conditions over the coming week, probably through thundery showers and thunderstorms, likely to be down across the south of the country. Remember, this is the 6th through to the 13th of May. Week 2 has the ridge over the country, so we've got above average heights there. But again, you can't see Scandinavia. There's a trough setting up across Scandinavia, which is probably turning the winds into the northwest, possibly even the north, something like that. Now, the temperature anomaly is coming out not too bad. It is cooler than week 1 in week 2. Still, it's cooler, but still generally a little bit above average. But as I say, if that trough is to back any closer towards us, that's setting up over Scandinavia during this week from the 13th to the 20th, we're going to be at risk of pulling down cold northerly winds. The JMA is sort of flirting with the idea, but not going fully into it. So the temperature's just about holding up through the middle part of the month, but it is quite a close run thing. Precipitation, that goes a bit wetter than average in the north and a bit drier than average in the south, so quite a switch there from week 1 to week 2. And then week 3 and week 4, which takes us through the end of May and into the start of June. This goes from the 20th of May through to the 3rd of June, shows the ridge down across the south of the country with low pressure running up to the north, and the jet stream is going through the country like that, especially to the northern part of the country. The temperature anomalies are easing down, so going back towards average, maybe hinting being a little bit cooler than average in the far north of the country. Precipitation, that's generally looking okay, a bit wetter than average for Scotland, near normal elsewhere. So nothing too alarming coming up. It looks like the warmest period is actually through the course of the coming week. After that, the temperatures aren't as warm, they gradually slide down, and precipitation doesn't look like there's anything there to be too concerned about. It's just this middle period of the month where the JMA is still showing it to be generally quite a bit above average, but the actual chart, the 500 millibar heights, does hint that something colder could occur there through that middle part of May. Let's have a look at the CFS V2. So again, these are 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. The first week period takes us from the 6th through to the 12th of May. The coming week, we've got this ridge over Scandinavia. Of course, we've got a trough of low pressure down to the southwest. So again, the jet stream does something like this, and we draw up quite warm air again from the south and the southeast. It's going to be a pretty warm week coming up, but this trough down to the southwest does provide the energy for some thundery showers. Now, week 2, and this is the one where I thought the JMA was just hinting at perhaps bringing down some cold air from the north. The CFS doesn't do it. It actually has the high pressure over Scandinavia taking over, really, and this is a very dry and settled week coming up. The winds would be in from the east, which isn't a particularly cold direction at this time of year, running over the cool North Sea, of course, so eastern coastal counties will be cooler, but generally this is quite warm and pretty dry, I think, as we go through this middle part of May. There's no sign of that trough setting up over Scandinavia for that week. Week 3, the 20th of May through to 26th, ridge through the country, so this looks very pleasant as well. We have got blocking re-emerging across Greenland, so it's not normally a good sign to have blocking up there, but I think this high pressure is probably enough to be warding off any cold air. Any cold air from this blocking is probably going down into the north of Scandinavia and western Russia, and I think essentially this high pressure is keeping us generally quite warm and dry still. And then week 4, the 27th of May through to the 2nd of June, bit of a change takes place then. The blocking is still there around Greenland, and we're bringing a trough of low pressure into the UK as the ridge slips in towards the east of Europe. So it's turning more unsettled here for the very end of May into the start of June. And there could be some quite cold air getting pushed into this trough again. And of course, cold air for the time of year, not going to be cold in terms of what it would be if it was winter, but there could be some colder than average air being pushed into this trough via the blocking. So maybe cooler and wetter as you get through to the very end of May and into the start of June. That covers the bank holiday weekend, of course. Just have a look at the temperature anomalies then. The coming week looks very warm, very pleasant indeed. Temperature anomalies well above average, as it is through most of Europe. What a change on what we had last week, where we was plunged back into winter. Week 2, temperature anomalies through the middle part of May. This is where I was a bit worried about getting some colder weather coming back from the north. CFS not interested in that at all. Very warm week coming up again from the 13th to the 19th of May, significantly above average temperatures then. Week 3, that one looking significantly milder than average also. That takes us from the 20th to 26th of May. And then finally the 27th of May through to the 2nd of June. That one still a little bit above average, but certainly a cooler trend taking place then as we go through to the very end of May and the start of June. Precipitation, it shows the coming week actually a little bit wetter than average. Remember, this is showery and potentially thundery air pushing up from the south, so will be hit and miss. Week 2, this is when the high pressure really takes over across Scandinavia and brings the winds into the east. That looks significantly drier than average. Week 3, we lose the signal by week 3, but again, for England and Wales anyway, it's a bit drier than average. And then week 4, this takes us to the start of June. We begin summer with, wouldn't you just guess it, a slightly wetter than average week. So it's all a bit of a mixed bag. They're very variable from week to week, and this is often what you get in May, a lot of variation, and you struggle a little bit to decipher what's going on. What we can say definitively is that the coming week is going to be very warm, and there's going to be a risk of thundery showers and thunderstorms being thrown up from the south at times. We go through to the middle part of May, and there is a discrepancy between what the models are doing. CFS wants to keep it generally dry and warm, the JMA keeping it dry and a little bit warmer than average, but there's just that hint there in the JMA that we could turn winds into the north. And it's interesting because the GFS this morning is actually playing with that idea. I think it's a low risk, but don't rule out the chance that mid-May could find some colder air pushing back from the north. We get through to the second half of the month and the start of June. Generally looks like starting off pretty dry, and then maybe a bit of a deterioration right at the end of May, in start of June, when it could turn wetter and more unsettled, potentially. That's a very long way off. So that's how it's looking this week. Do it all again next Friday, of course. Tomorrow it's the weekend forecast, so come back for that. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.